So I'm going to start by giving you a little bit of a background on myself and why Jeff and Taylor chose me to talk on this topic. So I'm Amanda Purnell. I am a coach with Glover U. I coach one-on-one clients and elite, which means that I coach the operations staff for people that are in one-on-one coaching. I have led 3 of the most successful teams here in the state of Michigan. I've been a director of operations for over 15 years. I've done every single position there is in real estate. I am licensed. I have sold homes. I do have my broker's license. I also own a property management company. So I fully understand the sales side of things as well as the operations. I truly love the operations side of things, which is why I naturally fell more into that role of director of operations. And then we're going to start going over like customer experience. There's a big difference between customer service and customer experience. And by having your operations and your systems dialed in, that's where you can take your business from a customer service business to a customer experience business, which allows your company to grow and scale on a much bigger level. Another little tidbit about myself, I said I'm very passionate about systems. I do like to joke that my love language is efficient systems. I think it should be a love language. There's definitely been times when my team has been like, you were getting a little way too excited about this new feature in our system, but that is my passion. So by implementing robust systems, you're ensuring consistency across the board for every single one of your transactions, and each client gets the same experience every single time, no matter what side of the business they're coming in, whether it's a listing or whether it's a buyer, if it's a lease, whatever you're working commercial, that they're getting the same exact system and the same exact experience every single time that you're doing it by following these robust systems. So let's get started with why we need systems in real estate. Systems are the backbone of any successful business, and I think a lot of times we forget about that in real estate, and our business is often very chaotic. But systems will really help you to make things more streamlined and less chaotic in your business. So here's my basic, very simple tactic that I follow, and this is something you'll want to write down. If you do it more than twice, systemize it. It needs to have a documented system that you can duplicate and you can repeat over and over again if you do it more than twice. And I know that seems like a lot. There's a lot of things I do in my business more than 2 times, but it does need to have a duplicatable system, and it needs to be documented to where if you weren't there the next day, somebody else could fall in line and they could take over for you. Now, this could mean whether you're onboarding a new agent, following up with leads, taking on new listings, managing transactions, all of those things need to be documented systems. And having these systems in place does more than just save you time. It also ensures the consistency and reliability in your operations, which is crucial for building trust with your clients and getting those referrals. So I also want to go over some of the key systems that we're going to do and scalability. So your systems need to be able to handle whether you're doing 30 transactions or 300 transactions. We don't want to have to keep breaking down the system and rebuilding it every time we hit a ceiling. So if you're at 30 transactions and now you're going up to 50 and you keep hitting a ceiling, there's something in your system that isn't filled in, and you need to figure out where that is and fill in those gaps to where you can break that ceiling. So it's really good if you have systems in place to audit those systems and make sure that they are scalable and duplicatable. I like to say if an 8th grader could come into your team or into your office and you have a system that an 8th grader could sit down and go, okay, I understand. Now that you signed the listing paperwork, this is what I need to do next. Don't overcomplicate it. Make it as simple as possible. So again, an 8th grader could come in and they can do the system for you. So now let's discuss some of the actual systems. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. So some of the major systems that you need to ensure that you have dialed in for scalability are going to be your comprehensive transaction management systems. So this starts from the time even before you take a new listing. So a pre-listing checklist. Once you set an appointment, what does that look like? What is the next step? Do you send out a text message confirming to them? Are you sending a pre-listing package? Everybody's checklist and system are going to be different, but you need to document every single one of those steps. Having a new listing checklist. So again, you sign the listing paperwork, what's next? Make sure that inside of those systems, you're also documenting when you're reaching out to the client and who is responsible for each task. It's not necessarily always going to be the same person, especially if you have help. If you have an administrator or you have an operations staff, who's responsible for it? A pending checklist. keeping track of all the necessary steps on both the listing and the buy side, so that way you don't miss something. The last thing we want is a client to show up at closing and go, oh, I didn't know I needed that. So making sure that you have all of those steps put in place, and then a post-closing checklist. So this goes after the closing. In Michigan, we are a state where they have occupancy quite often. So a seller is staying in the home and renting it back from the new buyer. So our checklists go well past the date of closing because we need to ensure that keys are still exchanged. Part of that is our post-closing follow-up system. So we actually have a 5-star review program, and Taylor covers this in her Systems of Real Estate class. But what that looks like is reaching out to clients after the closing, surveying them, making sure that they had a great experience, asking them for feedback. Where could we have done better? Where did you feel like there might have been a little bit of a lack of communication, so that we can then on the inside fill in that gap, fill in that hole. We then ask them for reviews at that point. So we survey them. Obviously, we want to get to the people that we think are going to give us great reviews, and then we send them out a system that allows them to survey us and give us 5-star reviews. And then we do incentivize them for doing that. But Taylor goes step by step, and she gives you that exact program, all of the emails that we send out, exactly what that looks like in her Systems of Real Estate class. But the ultimate goal with this is to have your robust systems to ensure that your clients never have to call you first. So that's one of the biggest key rules and things that we live by, especially at Glover Agency. This is like their number one operations thing, is a client should never reach out to you first. They should always know what to expect next. So that is also one of our systems. It's called What to Expect Next, and we have a buyer and seller book. So we do give this to them at the time of the consultation, but then we break it down. So each page is a different step. So if it's a listing, it's now that you've signed listing docs and we've scheduled your photos, what do you expect next? The photographer is going to come out. Here's everything you need to do to prepare. Here's what the photographer is going to do. What he's not going to do. He's not going to move your furniture for you. You need to do that ahead of time. So they get all of that every single step of the way. But the value is there, and that's what sets us apart from the other agents, because we are fully transparent and we're telling you everything up front. So buying and selling a home is a big deal for people. We deal with it all day, every day, but they don't, especially if they're a first-time home buyer or a first-time home seller. They've never dealt with this before. They need you to hold their hand and to leverage yourself to not have to answer those questions through every single step. We give them this book that walks them through every step. Now, we also know that they may glance through it and not read the whole thing. And so each step of the way, we send them a PDF and an email saying, like, now that photos are scheduled, here's the page out of that book on what's next to expect for photography, for your day of photography. Now that your home's active on the market, here's what to expect, and then we're letting them know how showing time works and how feedback works. So we're breaking it down throughout the whole process as well. So they do get the book physically at the time of the consultation, and it's the same on the buying process. So now that we're out house shopping, here's what to expect. Now that we're writing an offer, here's what to expect. And that's when we go over like the buyer power checklist and things like that. So there's a different book that we send out when we've set an appointment for a consultation. They get our trifold, which is different than our buyer and seller books. At the time that we take an appointment, we have a system in place, so then we send them out a trifold that goes over a little bit about the team, some of our marketing, why they should hire us, why they should work with us, and then also a little bit about the timeline. It's very bullet pointed about the timeline. So there's one for listings and there's one for buyers, and they get that at the time that they set the appointment. If we have enough time to mail it to them physically or drop it off at the door before the appointment, we like to do that. If it's a same day appointment or it's first thing in the morning and it just won't get there, then we'll email it to them. But as much as we can physically put something in their hands, we try and do that. And then, like I said, we just break it down. So basically each page or two is put into a PDF throughout that process, and that gets emailed to them throughout the process. So we go through the trifold with them, and we go through the whole entire process and timeline and figure all of that out. But when we're meeting with them, we're more just talking about them and trying to get to know what their needs are. So that's our What to Expect Next buyer and seller book. And then another system that you guys want to put into place is onboarding of new agents. So when we bring new agents onto our team, and this goes for staff as well, if you're a solo agent but you're hiring an assistant, you need to make sure that you have systems in place. So what does your training look like? So day one, when somebody's showing up at your office, do they have a desk to sit at? Do they have a computer? Do they have a phone? I know these sound so silly, but I have shown up for jobs as a director of operation on day one, and they're like, oh, Let's figure out where you're gonna sit. Let me clear this off and you can sit here and we'll order you a computer. It'll be here tomorrow. So just having those things set up in place ahead of time to where when somebody walks in, they're having that experience of feeling welcome to day one and not like, oh, I guess maybe I was a little bit of an afterthought. So systems really help with the training and the onboarding. And then same with like one-on-one meetings and coaching your people on your team. When are your meetings set? Do you have an agenda for those meetings? They should look the same every single time that you meet with them. And same with retention, having strategies in place to keep your agents. So once they're there, how often are you meeting with them? Are you pouring into them? What things are you doing to build culture and keep culture in your team? So you hear Taylor and Jeff talk about the things that we do at Glover Agency. Those are all systems. They're all documented. So they're strategic touch-outs. So when she reaches out to somebody, it's a strategic reach out. When she's reaching out to agents on the team and asking them how things are going, it's very strategic. It all has a purpose behind it, which ties into like our monthly meetings. We have a monthly meeting where all of Glover Agency comes together and meets in one location in person. And those meetings have an agenda. So we're going over and we're rewarding the people that have hit their goals. We're rewarding our top agents. So we're celebrating our agents and any of their milestones. And then we're also going over training. So even though the training is different every single month, there's an agenda for the training. So what are we training on marketing? So Alana's coming up and training something on marketing. What are we training on systems? So Taylor's coming up and teaching them a system. What are we training on, sales, and Jeff's teaching them sales. So each of our team meetings is very different, but they all follow the same agenda. The best system to track your numbers is the one that you're actually going to use. And I know that seems like a silly question, but I can tell you to use Sisu or whatever your CRM is, use an Excel spreadsheet. It really doesn't matter if you're not going to put the information in it. So whatever's going to work easiest for you, that you're going to have the least path of resistance to get your numbers into, is the system that you should be using. So our listing checklist is housed in our transaction management system. Our agenda for our team meeting is in Canva because that's where we're editing it. But those things are all documented. So I could literally tell you to go into my Canva account and update the team meeting agenda, and you would see exactly what it looks like, and you can just hit copy and change the dates and update the topics. We do also have like a rolling, we call it a live document in Google Docs. I don't like to keep all of my step 1, step 2, step 3 for entering a listing in something like that because it changes so much. So everybody does things a little bit differently. I use Screencastify and I record that system. So it's a recorded video that then is housed in either your YouTube channel, which is private to your team, or you can house it in a Google Drive, things like that. But that way, whoever I'm bringing on, they have videos that they can watch on every single step. I like doing it that way, and that way, if a system changes, I can just re-record a new video. It doesn't take me more time to sit there and type out the instructions, step 1, step 2, click here, click there. I can do it while I'm doing an actual listing. So I'm not wasting time updating a document when I can just hit record while I'm doing an actual process. And that's an easy way to do this as you're starting to document your systems. As you're actually doing it, like don't do it on a test one. Do it on something you're actually doing and just record the process as you're going so that way you're not wasting your time. Some of the other things we do for our culture and our team building activities are we do regular team building activities. We put those on the end of our team meetings, so we'll tack it on. So we'll do like a kayaking trip or a canoeing trip that after our team meeting we have lunch and then we all go kayaking, or we do some type of fun activity. We've done axe throwing, things like that. And again, those are all scheduled, they're all documented, so that way before I came to Glover Agency, these things were already in play. I was able to just step in, and now I can say, okay, well, there might be a little bit more efficient way to do this, so let's update it and let's improve upon it. We also do a lot of competitions because salespeople are competitive by nature, so we like to do a lot of competitions and sales contests that boost morale and productivity. Some of those are our Splash into Summer or our Back to Sellers, which will be coming up soon with Back to School. So we pick a topic like Back to Sellers where they're focused on sellers and they're focused on listings. And then we assign point values to things, and we give away little prizes throughout to keep them motivated. Even if their team's not winning, there's little prizes throughout to keep them still motivated. And then there's a big prize at the end, so the whole team gets to go on like a trip, or they just went to Tigers game on the last competition that they did. One of the other ones is client events and giveaways. This is a big one. We do a lot of client events. We do one a quarter. and each of those are completely documented systems. I also recommend that at the end of each time that you do a client event, you have a download meeting and you write all of that in the same document that you did last year's download meeting in. The reason why we do that is when we get ready to do next year's client event, we pull up that download notes and we go, oh yeah, I forgot. We said we were gonna do it better this year by doing X, Y, and Z. So what of that are we gonna actually implement this year? And then we update the sheet so that way we know the improvements that we've made in the system and what we still have on the agenda for maybe next year that we can implement. Some of those client events that we do are here in Detroit, Tigers baseball is a big thing, so we have a big opening day party where we invite all of our clients and then we ask them to invite somebody to bring with them, so that way we're building our database. We also do an Easter egg hunt in downtown Plymouth where Jeff's main office is at, and that is a community event where we invite the entire community to come out for an Easter egg hunt. We also do fall family photos. So we have our photographer that videos and photographers our house. He'll come through and he'll set up at a different local park each weekend in the fall. And we invite our clients to schedule a time and they can come and they can get fall family photos. Don't charge them anything, they just get to come and get family photos, which is really nice. And then the other one we do is Pi Day. And Taylor goes over all of these events in her Systems of Real Estate class as well and what those playbooks look like. Each of our agents do Pi Day a little bit differently. So again, we have them all documented because I would never be able to remember come next November what each of the agents likes to do. Some like to have their clients come to them, some like to deliver the pies to their clients. So it's all a little bit different on how they do that. And then the other thing that we do is contests and giveaways. So through like social media to keep your clients engaged. So all of those giveaways, we usually work with our marketing department. So Alana helps us out with a lot of that, but they're all documented. So we do the same ones for the most part each year. And then the biggest one is your database plan. We have 1 or 2 people I recommend at most that are in your database. Because if you have everybody on the team adding to your database, it's gonna get very mucky. Not everybody's gonna enter them the same way. Do you enter a husband and wife as Mr. and Mrs., or do you have one for the husband and one for the wife? Everybody's gonna do it a little bit differently. They can operate in the CRM, but they do not operate in the database. So they're a little bit different. The CRM is where they're working leads. Our database is set up as a mailing list. So that is managed only by the operations team, and not our entire operations team works out of that. So we use an Excel spreadsheet through Google Drives, and that is what ours is set up in, because that is easy for us to put onto labels. As you know, I've worked in Brivity too. You can enter clients in more than once. So now I'm having to spend all this time cleaning up in a spreadsheet to be able to print labels. Sometimes they don't capitalize the street names, and which drives me nuts. We keep it separate because when we do our events, we do client events. Yeah. So that's the list that we are mailing to. So if you're doing client and sphere events, then I would keep them both in the same place. Got it. You could have 2 tabs if you wanted to build it out that way too. But that way it's really easy for us to do invitations because we know that that is clean and only 2 people have operated in it. Because again, we have a huge database. Jeff's been in the business a long time. There's over 5,000 people in that database that are past clients. So when we're sending invitations out, I don't have time to clean up a spreadsheet that I've downloaded and extracted from another program. So it's once they close, that's part of our post-closing checklist is to add them into that spreadsheet, and then they're added in. Part of that database plan, so now that we have a clean database that I can actually easily work in, so it's very efficient, is we do send out, like I mentioned, and Taylor goes over these in very specific, our database plan and Systems of Real Estate, is we do these database boxes. So if you've ever gotten like an Ipsy box or a Bark box, they're the same concept. So we send out boxes monthly and the agents can choose who they want to send it to, and they just tell us who they are and we pull them straight from our database. But we send those out each month. It just depends on how big your database is. Again, ours is really big, so we want you to send the database boxes to people that are actually going to have a potential of sending you a referral. So if you're operating out of a smaller database, then I would just pick a number that you're comfortable with based on what the boxes cost. And you can choose what those cost. There's a big range that you can work with there. So examples of some of our boxes, at New Year's, we will send out 2 plastic champagne flutes and like 1 mini bottle of champagne with a couple chocolates in it. So it's just wishing them a happy new year and thanking them for their continued support and referrals. Some of the other ones that we do are for around St. Patrick's Day. We'll send them a $1 scratch-off lotto ticket saying, wishing you a lotto luck. So they don't have to be expensive that you're sending. They don't always have to be a big box. It can be little gift cards. Some of the other agents have chosen to do other things. So if you look in the Glover U Inner Circle, you'll see some of our other agents and some of the really cool things that they come up with. I had one of my previous clients did for Pi Day. So for March 14th, instead of doing St. Patrick's Day, they chose Pi Day. And they did something related to pie. So you can really make it whatever you want to make it and how big you want to make it or how small you want to make it. One that we did was April Showers Bring Make Flowers. So we did a logoed umbrella with some flower seeds in it. And we get so many calls back on that. And then I just turn around and ask them, hey, do you mind taking a picture and posting that on social media for me? Which of course they are more than happy to do. So one of my clients took a picture. She sent it to me and I asked her to post it, but she was out walking her baby and it started raining and she had the umbrella with her. So she posted it for me and that was huge, and I got some referrals based off of that. So it really just depends on what you want to do with it, but we try to do it to where our database people are either getting something once a quarter or every other month. Some of our agents do it every month, but they're picking a smaller group that they're really focused on. So again, these are people that are going to refer you business. So it's not just going to every single past client you've ever had. You want to be selective in who you're sending it to. And then obviously people can come off that list or be added onto that list. So if you find out that somebody went and bought a house with somebody else, well, they're not getting my boxes anymore, but somebody else will, Yeah. The hard part of gauging that, and we are learning as we're going along deeper and deeper, we're really diving deep on this database plan, learning which boxes the agents and the clients really love the most, because we did a February one for Valentine's Day where we did You Have a Pizza My Heart, and it was a little pizza kit, and the agents bought it up. Well, then we were driving around to all the dollar stores trying to get pizza cutters because we said that we were going to have pizza cutters in them, and we were buying, however many pizza cutters they had at each dollar store, and we were going to different counties. And now we know in our system there was a hole, and we need to be able to prepare for if everybody wants to do one, we need to be able to get the supplies for it. Some of the other database plan things that you would want to make sure that you have systems for are like farming postcards. We also do monthly infotaining emails, so it's a mix of information and entertainment. Those are sent out every single month, so we do have a system in place, so that way we're not like, oh my gosh, it's the last week of the month and we didn't send the email out. So those are all systematized things that we have in place. But that just gives you a good sample of all of the different systems that we have that are documented. I just want to let you guys know too, by creating systems that enhance your efficiency and reliability, you'll free up more time to focus on what you should be doing when what you do best, which is selling. So the more that you take a little bit of a step back or just schedule it and time block it out, give yourself a half an hour or an hour a week to be in your systems and cleaning them up and making them documented and assigning people to do those things for you. Or if you're a solo agent and you're doing it, assign yourself time in your week that you are working in your system and working on your system. The last piece of advice I'll give you is in each of your checklists, the last checkbox that should be there is what needs to be updated in the checklist. Because as you go through and you do each process and you do each closing where you put a listing on, you're gonna go, oh man, this didn't make sense. This was duplicated, or I don't even need to do this step anymore because the system had an amazing update and man, I got super excited, but now I don't need to do this step at all. So make sure that that last little checkbox is, was there anything I needed to update in my checklist? Okay, so systems are not just a convenience, they're a necessity in real estate. If you want your clients to all get the same amazing customer experience as the client that came before them and the client that's coming next, it's super vital that you have systems and have them dialed in. So just remember that if you do it more than twice, it needs to be a documented system.